What's going on, guys? We have the Ghosts of Matecumbe Key from Graham Nolan over there with Compass Comics. And this, his brand is some of my absolute favorite stuff. Like Joe Frankenstein, Monster Island, those kind of things. And this is definitely right up there with those. I would say Joe Frankenstein probably still wins out overall, but it's right there with, Monster Island. Like, they're both just kind of going after second place. So, everything created, written, and illustrated all by Graham. And we're just going to get right into it. We have a security guard. He's out there. He's just, he's got his dog barking and he's like, what is it, boy? What's going on? And so his dog gets him out into the rain. And they go looking, and we spot a guy over here. He's like, "Where is she? Who?" And he repeats, "Where is she?" He's like, "Buddy, I don't know what you're talking about." And then guy disappears, reappears behind him, and he's looking a little different here. Something about him, must be his hair or something like that. Okay, obviously he's a spirit, a zombie, something. He's like, "Where is she? Where's the trigger?" Okay, moving on. We cut over into the Everglades, and we see a guy out there. He's gator hunting, and this guy, we find his name is Tom, and Tom's out here. He's just smoking a little something, and just out there gator hunting, and he's not exactly the most appreciative of the rain, but none of that matters because he is witnessing a plane going down and crashing. So, naturally, he goes over he wants to go see what's going on. He sees some packages of sorts out there, and he's like, "Tom, today's your lucky day." And he goes in and grabs a whole bunch, and we're done with Tom for right now. Meanwhile, we're over here, and we see that these two people, we have Misty and Mike. Mike's also known as Meathead. They run an investigation business, and times are a little slow. Now, Misty has some, I guess, supernatural powers. I mean, she's not very strong. However, she has foresight, and then we'll see another one of her powers here soon enough. But she's predicting a knock at the door right before it happens. And in walks, we have Snake and Benny. Now, these are associates of a guy named Manatee. And Manatee's not a good guy. But more or less, they are looking to hire him. Things are off to kind of a rocky start. There's a little bit of disrespect here between Snake and... He calls Misty, he refers to Misty as Mike's bitch, and Misty's like, "I'm nobody's bitch. Things get a little heated after, Mike, he's not the most appreciative of this, asks him to leave. Benny's like, "Well, what if we don't want to leave?" And he's like, "Well, I got a gun pointed at your balls, and they can go bye-bye for all I care." Snake's like, "Okay, that's all settled down. We're here for business. Let's get down to it. We're an associate. We work for an associate. He wants some things retrieved." And Mike's like, "Does this have anything to do with a possible crash from last night?" And Snake's pretty impressed. He's like, "Oh man, he must be clairvoyant or something." Yeah, it might be. Kind of leading on like, "Yeah, totally." And Mike's like, "Yeah, we're not interested. I want nothing to do with drugs, because why else would a plane be flying in the middle of the night in that kind of weather? It ain't for tourists, and we want no business with Manatee." He already knows that these two are working with Manatee, because as we go on to find out, after Misty asks, we get an explanation as to what he does. He runs drugs. He's got his hands in all sorts of things, construction work, garbage and like politics and all sorts of things. Like he's a pretty connected guy. And Snake and Benny, they're like, are you sure that's really what you want to do? Manatee's not going to be happy. And he's like, yep, I think you guys, yeah, you ought to just go. And Benny's like, I'll be seeing you. Mike retorts, make sure to wear a Kevlar cup next time. I do like the little snark out of these two. And Misty's like, I understand, you want to make sure we have integrity, but we can't exactly spend that. And he's like, things will pick up. Phone rings, and what do you know? A job offering. It's an old pal of Mike's. It's a colonel who lives out at mile marker 1. That's as much as we know right now. And yeah, he's got a job for him, but it's going to be a couple days out. So Misty's like, well, that gives us some time we can go spend on the boat. And so we're done with them now. Cut over to a construction site for a new hotel complex that's going to get put up called the Tradewinds, and it is a manatee property. We see that they're uncovering a buried vehicle. And within the vehicle are a couple bodies. Foreman's not thrilled about this because they're already behind. It's going to set them back further because now they have to report it. We have bodies here. So he goes on to make the call, and two familiar faces go ahead and stop him. And long and short of it, they persuade him not to make that call. So, yeah, they're like, no, we'll dispose of this truck. It won't be a problem. You don't have to make a call. So we cut back over to Tom, and he plans on selling what he found. And so before he does that, he wants to go ahead and test the merchandise. And this hits a little harder than he had anticipated. And ultimately, it does cost him his life. He is dead. Bye, Tom. Cut back over and we see Misty's got herself a nice little catch, posing for a picture. They're out enjoying themselves. And Mike gets another phone call. And on the other end of the line is a woman named Maggie. This is Tom's sister. She is concerned about Tom and just wants a wellness check done for him. Mike's like, well, why don't we get the police involved? That's kind of part of something they do. And she says, well, I love Tom, but he's not always on the better part of the law, so I would rather just kind of keep this personal and private. And so Mike gets the address and says, okay, well, we'll let you know what we find. And he was just going to put it off to the next day, but Misty says, hey, I got a feeling we need to check this out now. And Mike doesn't argue against Misty's feelings. So we see Snake and Benny out here. They're getting rid of that truck. They hear a boat approaching, and they see that it's Mike and Misty. And they're like, motherfucker. They think that they're just trying to cash in on what was on that plane. So Mike and Misty, they're over here. They're checking out Tom's place. They knock on the door, just let him know, hey, your sister Maggie wanted us to check in on you. And then they find Tom there. They go to look at the body, and Misty gets freaked out because she sees somebody sitting there. Mike does not see anybody there. Cut back over to Misty, and she realizes, oh, it's Tom. It's him. And so she's discussing things with Tom here. All the while, Benny and Benny and Snake are watching. And what Tom is telling Misty is like, I was just trying to get myself out of here. I thought I could sell it and, find myself a better place to live. He's like, it must have been laced with fentanyl or something. The sad thing is, I've never done coke before. Kind of a one and done, just my luck. But Snake and Benny, they bust in and confront Mike and Misty, feel like they're getting double-crossed and screwed out of a deal. Tom is asking Misty, he's like, are these the ones that, who had the drugs? Misty's like, yep. And out goes Tom. And he scares the absolute piss out of Snake and Benny. They go running around, and Mike's like, well, what the hell? And where did that dog come from? Because we see Tom's dog just fly out of there, too. Cut over to Manatee's place, and Snake and Benny, they're trying to explain the whole situation. That Mike and Misty have what they were looking for, and yeah, they didn't end up acquiring it. Manatee says, well, they're going to send a personal hitman out there to take care of the situation. And Benny's like, should we have told him the whole thing, regarding Tom? And he's like, no, we're not telling him shit on that. I will say one thing, kind of a little bit of a criticism I had here. These guys are out here dumping the car. Why couldn't they take care of the whole drug situation? Didn't look like there was a whole lot of attention being drawn to it, so I have no idea why they really needed to try and hire Mike and Misty to begin with. Because they're already in the vicinity, because I imagine it wasn't too far from where Tom was. They kind of know the location, because they were going to give that information to Mike and Misty. So I'm not entirely certain as to why these two couldn't have just taken care of that job themselves and saved themselves a whole lot of heartache. So, alright, moving on. So Mike and Misty, they get back to their place, and they're just kind of discussing while they're waiting on their friend Jim to show up. Jim is an officer. He works in homicide, but he's going to take the drugs off of them. So they're getting ready to turn into the authorities, and we see somebody approaching, and he's got a weapon drawn. He doesn't look like he's the friendliest of people. There is an actual interesting conversation going on between Misty and Mike here, because they both have two different perspectives about Tom. Misty is very sympathetic to him after speaking with his, ghostly form, whereas Mike is just kind of like, sucks to be him, but all he really saw was a body. He didn't get to talk with Tom, and he doesn't know anything more than what he just saw. So I like the two different perspectives and the button of heads here. The knock on the door, Mike's like, okay, that's Jim. Let me go ahead and answer that. And Misty's like, nope, that ain't him, calls out. Mike understands that if she's freaking out, that there's bad stuff on the other side of that door. Runs over, grabs Misty, and then they take cover behind a desk. Hitman comes in, he's guns blazing, he's ready to go. Misty throws one of the packages, hits him in the neck just long enough to give Mike time to deal with the threat. And a great shot. It's like right between the eyes. So, after all that's settled, here comes Jim. And he's like, of course you're late. And so they explain everything. We find out that this guy was the Irishman who has alleged ties to the Manatee. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't sound too far-fetched, being that we've been dealing with some of his other associates as well. So things are escalating there. And we cut back over to the construction site. And we have a new inspector who wants to halt everything because he's like, you guys have like 40 violations. We need to knock this off. Snake's over here kind of trying to bribe him a little bit and just try to like, hey, it's okay, man. No big deal. And the inspector's just not having it. And so he's like, yeah, we found a truck. There were no bodies, but I'm willing to add one if you don't take this money. So, yeah, that escalated pretty quick. And we're going to go ahead and assume that the inspector went ahead and took the money because we don't see him again and everybody's still working. Later that night at the construction site, we have a new security guard. It's his first day on the job. And once again, there's somebody out there going, where is she? And he's like, look, man, this is my first day on the job. I have no idea what you're talking about. And ghostly form, getting a little more impatient. Where is she? And he's like, yeah, fuck this. And He takes off. He's like, this ain't worth 18 an hour. So first and last day for that guy. But not the last time we're going to see him, because here he is. But he brought a news crew now. So now this place is getting a lot of attention because of all the... It's said to be haunted. Manatee's not exactly thrilled about having the press there, so he's telling the foreman to get rid of them. He's like, well, they're not on the property. There's not really much I can do about it. And just then, one of the workers comes in and says, sir, we found another one. And now we come over to Misty and Mike again. They're standing at a memorial here in Florida that is dedicated to the lives lost. There was like 400 lives lost in Florida from a hurricane back in 1935. And we find out how deadly this place was. And Misty is feeling very drawn to this place. She can't quite put it what it is that's drawing her here, but she feels that everything going on in this area, it's somehow all connected, and this is something to it. And this is where we find out 400 people were lost, 200 mile an hour winds, 18-foot tidal surge, all sorts of stuff. Really bad stuff. It really sucks. Misty now, she's kind of looking at the memorial a little bit, decides to go ahead and touch it. When she does, it takes her kind of back in time. And here we meet Dan. And Dan's just explaining, I'm searching for my love, Camille. Can you help me find her? And Misty's like, what do I do? What can I do for you? How can I find her? And Dan tells her, touch the truck and all will be made clear. And by this point, Misty's starting to freak out and she's getting out of it now. And Mike's like, you were just like staring off into the distance and then you just started screaming. And she's like, I need to go find this truck. I don't know what truck. And Mike gets a call about something being found and she's like, that's it. So the news is talking again, going on about the haunting, and then we find that there is a truck being brought out, and that's what that worker was talking about to the foreman just a moment ago. And so officer then tells everybody to clear out because there's a body in that as well. So Misty and Mike are coming in to investigate this as well with their buddy Jim, and trying to get some info. Apparently it's a federal vehicle, but they're not entirely certain who's in there and why. And Misty goes ahead and she touches the truck. And she's given the story about Camille and Dan. They are two lovers. However, Camille is married to a man named Russell. Now Russell kind of sees them, goes over, this is Russell here, slugs Dan, and demands Camille get in the vehicle. Their friend William over here tells Camille, hey, you don't have to get in with that asshole. But because it's during the hurricane, some debris flies and kills poor William. Bye, William. They're still, Dan and Russell, they're still fighting it out. Russell gets the better of Dan, and they get in that vehicle and drive off. Dan gets in the truck and chases after him, but unfortunately everybody gets caught up in the storm. And yeah, you see all this water surrounding them. They're toast. So now we at least know who's in the two vehicles. We do see everything happening. Dan's trying to get out of the truck, still calling after Camille as the high winds, sand, water all just start tearing away his flesh, and then Misty comes back too. She lets everybody know that it was Dan, and Jim's like, how the hell do you know that? Like, how could you possibly know that? And Mike's just like, yeah, trust me, she knows. Mike and Misty go to discuss this at a bar, trying to figure out everything. They're discussing the two people in the car and stuff like that. And, well, Snake and Benny show up and like, hey, what if we could tell you where those people were? Why don't you come with us? They say so politely. So they're out on the beach. They rough up Mike, take control of Misty, and give Mike an ultimatum. It's like, if you want your girlfriend back, you're gonna have to get us back our product. He's like, I turned it over to the police. He's like, we know you got connections. Make it happen. You have until tomorrow night. So Mike makes a phone call. Jim delivers some stuff. And Jim also says, yeah, I'm going to come with you on this. You're not going solo. Meanwhile, we're back off where the vehicle was dropped off. And Snake and Benny are just letting Misty know, hey, we're going to add 2 more bodies to that truck out there when your boyfriend comes in. Until then, you're all alone. And Misty's like, yeah, I'm not all alone. Look at all the ghoulish figures back there. And then they start talking to Misty, like, what do you want? What are you trying to do? She's like, well, I'm trying to help you guys, but these 2 guys here with me, they're evil men, and they're trying to stop me. Now, of course, Snake and Benny cannot see who the hell she's talking to, so they think she's gone nuts. The talks continue, and they're like, nobody's ever tried to help us before. She explains that she's been sent by one of their own. She's trying to reunite Dan and Camille. Then pops out Camille from the vehicle in the water, and she's like, oh, my beloved Dan. And Russell's like, no, she's mine. Fuck off. And why would she be trying to help us? She's no friend. Tom comes up to back up Misty and is like, no, she is friends. We need to trust her. And so everybody but Russell decides they're going to go ahead and trust Misty, including, hey, William. And yeah, they're like, these 2 are just like, what the fuck is she talking about? So Mike approaches and Snake grabs Misty. Misty takes advantage of this, bops him in the head, kicks him, and starts to make a getaway. Because, she had a surprise attack, but she's not going to last. She's certainly not going to stand up to Benny. Benny's a big guy, and Benny's got his gun drawn, but he hears voices from behind him and turns his attention on either zombies, ghosts. I'm not entirely certain because he is making contact with these bullets. And he gets the gun slapped out of his hand. And here's Mike. He's like, all right, that's you wanted to fight earlier. Let's fucking do it. And yeah, Mike is able to handle Benny with ease and kind of just shits on him. He's like, man, you got poor form. You suck at boxing. He wanted to know where Misty was. Misty calls out to him, and there's Jim. And they see that Snake's sneaking up behind him. Jim pulls his gun, fires a shot, headshot. And Benny's running around. He gets surrounded by a bunch of ghoulies. He takes a swing at him, and he's just going right through, but he was off balance, so he goes into the water where he becomes gator food. And, the ghosts, they're just kind of mocking him, like, yeah, he did suck at boxing, poor balance kind of stuff. Really, really humorous stuff that I've grown to expect from Graham at this point. I really like a lot of the little humor and snarkiness that he puts into these. Makes me really appreciate the characters. So yeah, everything's starting to get settled. Jim's just like, well, there's our witnesses against Manatee, but, it is what it is. And then we need to get back to the business at hand of reuniting Dan and Camille. And of course, Russell's still there. He's like, no, this is, she's mine. She belongs to me. And he's getting real shitty with Misty, and Misty's like, well, the vows were until death do you part. You got nothing here. And we cut away and see kind of from their POV, yeah, Misty looks to just be talking to herself. But we know that's not the case. So, yeah, everything's starting to get resolved with the ghosts here. And then we cut over to Manatee's apartment, and Jim and a buddy of his, I never did catch his name if it was mentioned, are just letting Manatee know about his associates and things like that, and how everything's kind of going to shit. Now, Manatee claims to have no knowledge of this, and just to kind of further insult, he's like, once we get this hotel up, you guys just give me your information. I'll make sure you guys get like a room on the house or something, some sort of discount even. And Jim's like, you'll take the fall one day, Manatee, mark my words. And so Manatee's over here now that he's all by himself. He does kind of get pissed off that he just lost Snake and Benny. And Tom shows up behind him, and it was like, those were your drugs. How many people have you killed because of stuff like that? And it goes on to scare the shit out of Manatee, who takes a little tumble. He goes falling down, and lands splat right in front of Jim and his associate here. And I kind of like Jim's retort. He's like, well, he took the fall quicker than I thought. Anyways, want to grab a beer? So that's the end of Manatee. We see Mike and Misty over here. They're laying Dan and Camille's ashes to rest together. And then they go meet up at mile marker 1. And it is said to belong to a billionaire, but they are surprised by how absolutely small this building is. And we meet our Colonel Houston here. And I do believe he's a reference from another comic. I'm drawing a blank right now as far as exactly where he comes in. But they go and check it out, and they're like, oh, nice place you have here. And the Colonel's like, yeah, but it's a little small, isn't it? But that's okay. We have plenty of secrets here at mile marker 1. And open up a door to reveal an elevator, go down to an extremely fast, and we find basically a small city. And they said that this is a collection site for monsters, supernatural things, and other things that go bump in the night. Dangerous things, all sorts of stuff. And he also says, it's about time that you meet whose place this really is. And this is where, when I was reading, my soy face came into play, because I was really excited by what I saw next. And we have Joe Frankenstein and crew. Look at that. And I was like, oh, fuck yes. Yes, give me more of this. So, we're not quite done yet. So, we have an epilogue. We're out in space. A little portal opens up. Spaceship flying through. Now, we're having some back and forth about what are they going to do when they get back. Like eat wings and drink beer, that kind of stuff. Stuff they're really missing. Heading to Earth. Let me see if I can cut this out so we don't reveal the next page right away. And they crash down into the water, and their little safety hatch blows open after a team comes out to rescue them. And who do we have in there? Mac and Duke. And that also just made me just absolute, just soy face. Like, oh my God. So I'm really interested to see how all of these stories tie in together. This is good stuff. And so that is where we are done with the Ghost of Matecumbe Key. And like I said, I think as far as where everything stacks up with Compass Comics, I like Joe Frankenstein just a touch more than things like Monster Island and the Ghost of Matecumbe Key. I would say that this and Monster Island kind of tie in that really tight second place for me. These are great stories. I love Mike and Misty. Neither one seemed to be perfect characters by any stretch. I like that they have integrity. They're falling on hard times. Money sounds really good, but because of what it's going to mean, they're like, no, we can get money elsewhere. Something will come up at some point. I don't need your dirty money. I don't want to do business with a vile person like the Manatee. So I really like the kind of characters we have here. I really like that we have somebody like Misty who can talk with the undead, kind of see things just slightly ahead. I think you can get some really good storytelling out of that. And I also really like a more horror focused story like this. Like Joe Frankenstein's got plenty of spookier elements, but it's a little bit more lighthearted. I mean, don't take me wrong here. You know, there's still some creepier stuff in there, but I feel that this one goes just a touch on the creepier side, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, Compass Comics as a whole, I would totally recommend, especially if you're into monster stuff. That's the stuff that really appeals to me. So I'm all about this. Like this is my favorite company so far. These are my favorite kind of stories that I'm reading, and Graham just knocks it out of the park for me. But yeah, this is good stuff, and if this would be something that would interest you, be sure to check the link in the description where you can get a copy for yourself, or at least two to follow should a second chance campaign arise. But that is all I have for today, guys. So until next time, take care and God bless.